What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the 5-9 mobile channel. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different, and that is looking at some of the controversies that Dokkan has kind of went through over the years. Now, you know, most of the time when we think about Dokkan, we think of it in a more positive light, just because, you know, some other Dragon Ball gachas to compare it to usually seem to be in the news for negative things, but Dokkan has had their fair share of controversies. So, you know, if you guys don't know, I'm a newer player, so, well, newer as in, like, I've only been playing for about 2 to 3 years now, so I had to bring along a veteran. So with me today, I have the free-to-play king of Dokkan, Silly Nolar.
What's going on, guys? It's been a bit, but yeah, I've been playing since, I want to say, like, 6 months into the game on Global, transitioned into JP, or after the 1-year anniversary on Global, so... yeah, I got shafted pretty bad. We'll talk about that. But yeah, I'm glad to be here and talk and give you the wealth of my knowledge, which is I've been playing this game for too damn long.
Yeah, that's one way to put it, right? Yeah, it's one thing that I kind of never really experienced too much was I never have done multis where SSRs weren't guaranteed. So I feel like it's all been sunshine and rainbows for me, but you know. Oh my god, yeah. I couldn't imagine going 500 stones and getting like 3 SSRs or something like that. It would just be so brutal.
Try 1,000. I've done that once. Yeah. All right. Well, so we've got about, like, I want to say 7 big things that we want to talk about. There's actually a lot more. Like we were going to talk about some errors, some issues, stuff like that. But the one that I remember very vividly, because it was right when my nephew was born, was the New Year banner of 2017 going into 2018 on JP. This was pretty big because it was the second version of STR Rosé and Tech Vegeta Blue. Like, everyone was hyped about it and it was crazy. So when the banners dropped, you know, it's the New Year's banners, dual Dokkan Fest. Everyone likes Rosé versus Vegeta Blue, even though they technically didn't really fight off against each other, but here we are. There was a big issue, and the big issue was that on STR Rosé's banner, there was a Dokkan Awakened image of Super Saiyan 3 Broly. Now, why would that be a big deal? Well, the big deal is you don't actually summon Super Saiyan 3 Broly awakened. You have to awaken him. So, in a way, it looked like false advertisement, or however you want to describe it. And the banners came down for, I want to say, just anywhere from like 5 to 6 hours or something like that. And then the banners came back up. And then the actual regular image of Super Saiyan 3 Broly showed up. And then there was compensation, obviously, for that. And the compensation was, any stones you spent on the Rosé banner, you were refunded straight out, which was kind of nuts, right? Like, just kind of crazy to think about. And you kept all the units you pulled. So, like, for me personally, since I was playing at the time and I was hyped for it, I went in, I got Rosé within like the second, so 300 stones, the second round of 3+1s, and then I moved to Tech Vegeta Blue, who I got absolutely just blasted hard on, like 1,500 stones, didn't pull one.
Right.
And yeah, then I wake up the next day and all of a sudden I get 300 stones back. I didn't know what happened. Like, it just didn't register to me because it was, again, like 1 in the morning when I'm summoning. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think Global's ever had that. I think they've learned, right? But
yeah, clearly,
yeah. What are your thoughts? I mean, you weren't playing around then. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, just kind of looking at it, right? Like, I could just imagine, like, say, you know, you went hard on that banner and spent like 2,000, 3,000 stones, and then you just wake up in the morning and check your gift box and you have 3,000 stones back. Like, I just feel like I could just imagine a video in this day and age, like 3,000 free stones in your gift box, even though for someone it could be like 50, right? So
yeah, I mean, I think for Truth, I think it was like 900 stones because he went evenly on the 2, but like for me, I wasn't wailing hard back then, but it was more like, oh, I just at least want to pull one and then I'll move on to the next one, right? But I wish I knew. I would have gone I would have dumped all my stones if that was the case. Yeah. But look, it wasn't a big deal. It makes sense because in a way you could argue it being false advertisement and all that kind of stuff. So they had to be, you know, appropriately compensating on that end. So it makes sense.
Yeah. What's up? So errors with banners is something that we're not done with quite just yet, but let's go ahead and transition into our next issue. Now, this one I was around for, but both of us are JP players, so we only really got to see this from an outside-in perspective. But Global during like the spring era of 2021 was really just not playable because support items were just not usable in just about every event. Like we were looking at the list and it was like doing like some of the growth events, and the World Tournament was postponed, and you couldn't play Boss Rush, Dragon Ball History, the Goku event, ESPR, SPR, everything. Like if Red Zone was there at that time, you wouldn't have been able to play it. So this was the game was essentially unplayable for a week. And where we kind of found the issue was just like, you can't play the game. Okay, here's 10 stones, right? When, we just talked about it. Oh, okay, there's a wrong image. Here's full refunds, right? So that's, I think, what people were really worked up about was the, just like, we can't even play the game while you guys are playing the game on the other version. And we only got 10 stones for this when, I guess kind of like one thing you have to think about it, like if this was the Japanese version, would the compensation be different?
Yeah, I mean, that's very true. And I mean, again, we're both JP players, so we're just, outside perspective, like that sucks. Like you literally can't play the game. Like you can't do anything, right? So I would have imagined there would have been better compensation, but unfortunately there wasn't. But yeah, again, this seems pretty bad, but there are some worse things that happen down the line, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to see where it is on the issue. So yeah, like what it said, like what I was talking about, it wasn't just like, oh, you could still play events and, not use items, right? But it says here on the wiki, multiple events have been temporarily closed to this issue. Others have been postponed until the issue has been fixed. So just like straight up, all the Dokkan events were gone. Everything fun about the game just wasn't there. And the most fun of all, World Tournament was postponed for like a week or something like that. I forget what the exact thing was, but everyone loves World Tournament, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's the best mode possible.
The worst of all. Yeah.
So
that was the worst thing about it. No World Tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. And Toon Rami's crying right now. He's still crying because he couldn't do the World Tournament on time. So, all right, the next one that we have on the list here is New Year's 2020 going to 2021, if I remember. This was the global side because both sides, when the New Year's banners drop, they have guaranteed LRs, step ups, and stuff like that. Well, this one had the UI Goku error for global, and I believe it's just UI Goku wasn't even in the pool. Is that correct?
Yeah, and he was also I'm pretty sure he was the face of the New Year's banner. Like when you got to the thing, it was like guaranteed LR. There's got Goku pointing his little gun at you, and he wasn't even on the banner because of an ID error. Right,
and I think it was LR Tech Super Saiyan 3 was the mix up. So like if you got Super Saiyan 3 Goku on your pull, that possibly could have been UI Goku. I would have been mad too, right? So
yeah, it should. It was 100% supposed to be UI Goku. Sorry.
Right, and I think everyone complained, rightfully so. And eventually there was a compensation where they fixed the banners. They gave you 10 stones for the issue as a whole, and I believe refunds on if you like pulled on the banner. So
every stone that you got, it was exactly like the first issue we talked about, where The only thing with this one, though, is that there was a limit of 600 stones that you could do, unlike when the other one you could go 10,000 if you wanted to. But any stone that you did summon, it was given back. So it was, and you get to keep the units. So it was free units, essentially.
Yeah, it sucks, but, they did eventually fix it. So that is a good thing.
Right.
All right, what's our fourth issue we want to talk about here?
So this one is infamous for those who have played during that time. This was during the... I want to say, was it the 200 million download celebration?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, and this was Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta and Omega Shenron, where they had categories, and these categories were on the leader skill, but the leader skill for the unit said to be released rather than the stats to Fusion and Shadow Dragon Saga like they normally should have been.
Yeah, so I was playing this time, and I was like heavily into the game, so I remember this very, very vividly. I'll give you a little background. So I think it was Renzi who data mined that Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta was coming, Omega was coming. And obviously, at the time, everything was JP sided, like heavily on JP's side, so everyone thought it was just a JP release. But when he data mined that it was going to be a global release, everyone was going crazy, like, oh my god, it's a global exclusive, we're getting Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta first before JP does, blah, 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 blah. Well, it turns out it was just a joint celebration of the 200 million download celebration. And that was kind of insane because I don't think... I could be wrong, but I don't think we had a lot of joint celebrations. I think this may be the first one or maybe like the third one, but we didn't have a lot of joint celebrations at that time. And this highlighted the issue because JP like sprinted through the 120 meta from second year anniversary till 6 months later. And then now global was supposed to like be conjoined at the same time. obviously there was going to be a problem because Global didn't finish the 120 meta till, several months later. And then what are you going to do with the leader skill? So everyone who pulled these guys on Global were putting them under, like, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta was under Super Saiyan 3 Angel Goku's lead, right? For Super Tech Mono, right? And then for Omega, it was under Physical Cooler's lead. So, they could still play with it, but it wasn't clearly the big meta jump that JP got, which we got to enjoy, the fusions and this whole concept, and then of course the theory crafting of like what kind of categories we got, and then 4 years later here we are. But yeah, it was insane. Like, people were mad, and I completely understand it. Even as a JP player, like, yeah, I'd be pissed too, because I don't get to play with the new shiny toy that I had to spend money to get in the proper way, because you guys can't manage the two sides. So that's where people, still on the horse of just make the two versions on the same timeline, right? So I don't know.
I think if there's one way to kind of compare it to Global, right? Like, or if we want to put this in the modern day, it would be like if we were doing Saiyan Day at the same time this year, and Majin Vegeta did not have his 200% on the Global version because they hadn't caught up to the anniversary yet. And that would be a big troll, right? Like, just not good. Yeah,
that's where right now people were like, oh, okay, they learned their lesson. Like, to be released will never happen again. They'll just drop the new lead, and then people will catch up to it if they want to. But like, that was bad. Like, that's a meme that'll never die. To be released will never die.
Right. Yes. A lot of this stuff has never died. We still have a couple things left on here that still haven't died.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. So let's go ahead and move on to our next issue. Now, this one is like the 2020 New Year's issue. I think a lot of people were here for this one. This was during last year, I think it was around the winter or so. We had a little bit of a bug that people found where essentially units could infinitely stack attack and defense to astronomical proportions with the use of airplane mode. I think it had something to do with, like, you turn on airplane mode, kill the app or something like that. I didn't do it myself, but you could have units essentially kill the punching machines, all 5 of them, with the sheer amount of attack that you could do. And the controversy from this came from messages from the devs saying that action will be taken. So everyone kind of just went up in arms thinking, ban wave this, ban wave that. I did this to do the corroded body in my GT Goku event mission. Am I going to get banned? And stuff like that. Now, to my knowledge, people have not been banned, but this definitely caused quite a stir.
Yeah, I think the best way to describe it is just the threat of it made people stop, right? It's just supposed to, stop people from abusing an exploit. It was straight up an exploit, right? And look, I understand if you're a free-to-play light spender, can't pull the units, can't fulfill all the missions, you're tempted to do it, but, that's how they want you to be, right? Like, they want you to open up the wallet, get the units, beat the events, and move forward. This directly countered their money-making strategy, so clearly they had to make sure people stopped abusing it and move forward. Now, look, you do whatever you want. There's consequences to the terms of service if you break them or whatever the case may be. So, I don't know. It was a big deal because people were like, "Look at these stats; these are insane." I'm like, "Yo, that's not a good thing." Like, things are gonna go down, and of course they fixed it and patched it. I think like a week and a half later, but it was still a big deal. People managed to clear stuff they couldn't clear for years. It is what it is. So, yeah, it was insane when the hype or the when this was going on, everyone was just going nuts. But fairly so.
I just found the more humorous aspect of this is when people would, like, I remember seeing tweets like, oh, I used this to clear all the Zenny missions on the punching bag. Am I going to get banned for this? And it's like, going out sorry for some Zenny like that would have been quite tragic, right? Like, and the picture that's associated to this on the wiki is Chow Man doing a 76.3 million attack stat. So that is about where we're at with this bug. It just, Chow Man's hitting for 80 million on Dokkan Awaken Uneasy Aid. So that's just what the power of this airplane mode thing would do. I think a lot of people had their fun, and thankfully not a lot of people were banned or anything like that from it. So I guess we could all just kind of look back at this one and laugh, right?
Yeah, this one you just laugh at and be like, all right, well, it is what it is, and time to move on. So here we are. All right, I'm going to close this out with 2 big issues that came up. Now, I'm going to start off with JP because this is the one I remember the most. And this was the 300 stone compensation. everyone talks about 300 stones. If you have an old veteran player, global player, be like 300 stones. And everyone knows what that means. I'm sure a bunch of you guys will, and you'll know and tell us in the comments below, 300 stones. I bet you I'll see like 50 of those. So what the 300 stone conversation was, on Kefla's initial debut banner, physical Kefla, right? The Patara lead. She was the initial Patara lead, if I remember. And it wasn't like a Dokkan Fest banner. It was a regular banner for just her featured. And then, of course, that means that there were LRs, other LRs. I remember this one because I pulled Bojack. I didn't pull him on this featured banner. I pulled him on this banner. But the reason why this was a big deal was the rates were displayed improperly. So, like, if I pulled up the game, the rates were one way. And then if, let's say, Villavai was playing at the time and he pulled up the game, the rates would say something different. And people were really pissed. They thought that Akatsuki had rigged the rates. Now, what this was a display error. But this was such a big deal, and I can't like emphasize how big of a deal this was, because it showed up as news on JP Yahoo Finance, because they thought that this was going to kill Akatsuki and like Dokkan as a whole. Because this was illegal, right? Like rigging the rates. That's what the catchphrase was. It was rigging the rates. Akatsuki's rigging the rates. Nothing's real or whatever. And so what Akatsuki eventually did was they literally in a message showed exactly how they do the rates, and that was insane because they like opened Pandora's box, right? They showed you how the coding worked on how you pull units and stuff. And like that's the secret sauce. You don't show people that, but they had to instill confidence in the player base that they weren't like trying to screw you over and manipulate you. It was just legitimately a problem with the display as opposed to the actual rates. But they took the banner down. They gave us 300 stones compensation, and then straight up like apologize and beg for forgiveness, or whatever you can think of. Because if people legitimately thought that they were actually rigging the rates and stuff like that, the game would have been shut down. And that's JP. And if there's no JP version, more than likely there's no global version, right? So to me, this was one of the biggest deals for JP because this was the crossroads of like, if they don't fix this and compensate people fairly, people will be pissed and burn this place to the ground, and then it would have been over. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on this? Because you never heard of this before, because you weren't playing around this time, right? So,
well, I mean, we've talked about it, right? How 300 stones will forever live on. I've surely heard about it and talked about, like, I know what it is, right? But, just the whole idea of like we specifically talked about like the stock of the company and stuff like that becoming a big issue. That like in the threat of the game being shut down, like that sounds way more big of an issue than say this airplane mode bug that we just talked about. And it's like, and I pulled it up as you were talking, and they were like, it says right here where it's like a code where it's like auto p equals results card data cache dot fetch and stuff like that. And this was like, this is stuff that we're not supposed to see. It got so bad to the point where we actually had to like you said, the company was like, yeah, here, this is how we do it, this is what you need to see. And I don't even know personally if I was at the time if I would have been like, oh, okay, they gave me my stones and 300 stones back. It's like, I don't know, is this really a sign of trust, or is this kind of like we messed up so bad that we're gonna try and get one over on you?
Yeah, right? I don't know. I mean,
definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I think Goresh was saying that like at the time people were like really upset. You know what I mean? Like they were genuinely
understandably
concerned.
so.
Yeah, because and again, this was before the third year, because GSSRs were third year, just after the third year. So there was no guaranteed SSR. So like legitimately, I like in the third year, and this is a little bit later than that, I was pulling. Like, I went on Gogeta's banner, 1,000 stones, didn't pull a single SSR, okay? 1,000 stones, no SSR. So people were thinking, like, I was shafted for so long, like, could they just be rigging the rates? Like, that's how bad it looked, right? So this was a big deal.
And you mentioned the 3-year banner, but I believe this was before that, because this.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's like the GSSRs were like a couple months after the 3-year banner, and and so everything before that, like I went thousands of stones without an SSR before. You know what I mean? And before this issue came up, I always thought like you had the conspiracy theory, like I was shafted, like they rigged my rates. And this showed like two different players side by side showing the rates in the game looking different. They're like, yo, they're rigging the rates. Like, screw this game, right? So, legitimately, to me, this is the biggest error. But this is coming from the JP side of things, right? So,
You want to go ahead and transition to the biggest issue over on the global side? Because this one...
this is what made me quit global, okay? This right here.
Yeah.
All right, I was playing global from 6 months to about a year, just a little bit after the 1 year on global, and switched to JP because, well, my whole story is I went to play with Buhan, and Buhan looked fun. That was great. But on global first year, this was back in 2016, I want to say.
2016, yeah.
Yeah. The gacha landscape was very different. Like, you did not have to report the rates on the banner at all. Like, nowadays, Apple Store, the iOS Store, and the Google Play Store requires every gacha game, mobile game to display their rates. Back then, they didn't. So, nobody knew what the rates were. They always said it was 5% or something along those lines, 3 to 5%. And the only way we knew, and this is going to be a way back throwback for people, was Renzi, who was data mining. He would just auto script bots to make different accounts and then pull, with the free stones. And then he'll aggregate all that data to show like, oh, okay, so this banner is a 5%, SSR rate, blah, 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 like roughly, right? Really, really close, like 4.97. It's close to 5%. Yeah, that's fine. Well, what happened was in the first 77 hours on global, the STR Gogeta, who was the king card of the game, like if you didn't pull him, you might as well trash your account and reroll. That's how good he was, okay? You guys think Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta is broken now? He was nothing compared to STR Gogeta. Either you pulled him or you start a new account, and if you didn't pull him and you kept your account, nobody wanted to be your friend. They'd like delete you off your friends list. Like, that's the way it was. So the rates for Gogeta were lowered. And because they weren't displayed, we didn't know that until Renzi, like in the second day, third day in, he was like, yo, the rates are a lot lower to pull Gogeta. And he's done thousands and thousands of pulls on different accounts. He's like, yeah, it can't be just bias or, not a big enough sample rate. It was a big enough sample rate to be like, yo, they actually lowered the rates for Gogeta. And then after the 77 days, or 77 hours, not days, 77 hours, it went back up to 5%, if I remember, like overall featured rate. It was insane. Like, I didn't know that. And then by the time the damage was done, I went 120 multis on Gogeta's banner without pulling a single Gogeta. And again, no GSSRs, anything like that. I went 120 multis. And that's when after that I was like, yo, I'm done. I'm moving on. Right. I think I'm going to go to JP now. So yeah, that's how bad it was. I don't know. It was insane because Janemba was untouched, if I remember. It was only Gogeta's banner. Like, that's how we knew this was this. Like, to me, this is the scummiest thing ever in Dokkan. Both global and JP. This is the worst thing they've ever done.
Yeah.
So
I'd say this is, like I said, mentioned when I teased this. I think this is the most egregious thing, like, because most of the things we've talked about are unintended bugs and little mishaps, like art is wrong, but this one was intentional. It seems the rate, like you said, just the rates being lowered is just such a negative thing, and not to mention it was also, it says here on the wiki that the game they couldn't handle the traffic. Right, it was impossible to enter the game for several hours. Right, and this happened with the upcoming Vegito Dokkan Fest banner as well. So it wasn't like the only time this happened. Right, not the rates, but just not being able to get in.
Yeah, I mean that persisted all the way. I think the worst was during the second year for global
the fours,
and JP. Like the problem was when you can't enter the game or it lags so bad that sometimes the game crashes or you close it because you think it's your internet when it's really not. It's their servers. And it was just bad overall. Like, nobody knew, right? Nobody knew. So yeah, to me this is the worst thing they've ever done because, like you said, this is actually, I mean, seemingly, right? I can't definitively prove it, but seemingly they intentionally lowered their rates just screw people over. That's the worst thing I can think of that of course, this is the one thing Dokkan wants to hand wave, and of course nobody really knows unless you've been playing the game as long as I have, or Goresh has, or D Free, or some of the other OGs back in the day. They remember all that stuff too, right? So.
And that is why people like you guys exist, to make sure that it lives on and we don't forget about it, right?
Yeah.
And the 300 stones, don't worry about that one. That's not your job. No, they're not gonna let you forget that one.
Yeah, I will always say this is the worst thing Dokkan has done. So, I guess that wraps up my portion. Thanks for bringing me on. If you guys know any other, errors or things, mishaps that you think, deserve to be mentioned, let us know in the comments down below. Of course, if you're new here and want to hear more talk about us talking about Dokkan Legends and anything Dragon Ball related, mobile related, hit that subscribe button. That like button always helps us out. Appreciate it, guys. And with that, thank you for bringing me on, Vilify. Appreciate it.
Sounds very good. Nice to have you here.
And with that, guys, we'll see you all in the next one. We're out.
See you later, guys.